Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the Brickyard interview series. I'm Andrea Thompson, and today it is my pleasure to be chatting with Hartley Reed Schuyler. Hi, Hartley.
Hello. How are you
I'm great, thank you, and excited to be talking to you today.
as well?
Okay, so let me tell everybody a little bit about you. Hartley Reed Schuyler, they, is a queer, trans, mad, and disabled artist located on the stolen lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, colonially known as Vancouver. I used to live there. Within their own identity, Hartley finds home in storytelling, spoken word, acting, dance, drag, theater tech, and visual art. Hartley is grateful to be able to navigate himself within these art forms and has been able to step on local, provincial, and national stages in many mediums and is the Voices of Today 2020 Underground Indies champion. Much of their artwork is focused on breaking down the unspoken expectations of intersectional storytelling and being a messy, queer, trans, mad, and disabled person. In tandem with that, their advocacy work is centered on uplifting intersectional conversations and stories, particularly in youth spaces. Currently, you can find them jumping between different performance art projects, doing drag, and working full-time at Carousel Theater for Young People as their outreach and communications coordinator. Okay, so welcome, Hartley.
Thank you so much for having me. It truly is a pleasure.
I'm excited. So this is the fourth interview that we've done in this series that we've been doing with Hot Damn. It's a queer slam, and we're doing this we're going to be posting this just before your workshop. So you have a workshop coming up with Hot Damn. This is 2022, and
Yes,
this
it
is on July 9th. Do you know what time that is? What time that's going to be going?
It's at 12 p.m. my time, which is 3 p.m. in EST.
Awesome. Okay, so 3 p.m. and you can check out the Hot Damn website for more on that. I'll be giving you that at the end, and as well it'll be below. So I'm curious, how did you get involved with the Hot Damn community? How did this workshop come about?
Yeah, so I actually have, when I joined the spoken word community back in the Toronto area in 18 now, I immediately became friends with Robin Corsidou, who introduced me to Hot Damn Queer Slam as a spoken word poet and a performer and a competitor, and then promptly got involved on the back end when Robin took over as the artistic director of Hot Damn Queer Slam. We're very close, the two of us, so it's been really lovely being able to work closely with someone who I consider one of my best friends.
Oh, that's awesome. We had Robin on, was our first interview.
Yes.
And I was like girl fanning over here. I think Robin is awesome. And
Robin
so
is
clever.
phenomenal.
And so smart, yeah, and capable and on it. And it's just been really a pleasure to work with on this series. Okay, so let's just jump in. I would love for people to have a chance to hear some of your work. Did you want to share a piece with us?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so start here. Content warning, some mental health stuff. So if you want to skip ahead, feel free to do so. This one is called, this one is called Yellow Brick Road. Mm. Sirens sound in the distance. Symptoms spend me. Wow, it's been a long time since I've said a poem on Zoom. Let me start over. And this is part of being messy.
Nice. Human. We're humans.
Exactly. Sirens sound in the distance. Symptoms send me spiraling as brain becomes twister. Staccato breathing, heart rate 214. I hear her whisper, "It's going to be okay," before I fall asleep. I stumble out of my body and onto Yellow Brick Road. Red shoes sparkling, I pick pathways out of the poppies. I meet anxiety on the path first, pinned up crucifix in my classroom. Clutching prayer, he says he is having a panic attack. I tell him to count to 4. Trace his hat to help him focus. He says he does not have a brain, cannot find pattern in numbers. His eyes sewn on just for solace. I help him up from the hell of Hail Marys, but he falls on his knees. A sinner begging for salvation. He comes with me, tells me about the Holy Trinity. His hands begin to shake again. Bones made of hay have no Holy Spirit. Obsessive compulsive disorder collapses onto the path. I'm stuck from being stuck sanitary. Water does not heal all wounds when you are scrap metal. He is corroding himself and he cannot figure out how to stop it. Doesn't know saltwater tears are breaking his bones, habitual hand washing in the closet. He asks for holy water and I cannot hand it to him. I do not have any yet. I ask, can you feel the pain of broken skin? He says, I do not have a heart to feel anything other than hope. Says maybe one day he will, but for now he is too tin man, and he uses what is left of his strength to pray to the wizard, hopes he will heal his broken parts. I do not have the heart to tell him the wizard is a con artist called Catholicism. I tell him he can come with me to find him anyway, and I feel like Snake, tempting Eve with poisonous apple. I wonder if that's why my shoes are red. I walk with him for years before we meet the third, lion's mane of anger and nowhere to put it, borderline personality disorder, says the world is good or bad, cannot fight back, has no courage. He lets people tell him he belongs caged and cages himself. They call him unstable, a threat, manipulative, medicated with him with Ativan and antipsychotics, push it down far enough and the claws won't come out, or maybe the exposure therapy was the decline. The wizard whispered to him that he was bad and he believed him. So everyone else believed him. The con artist tore his tongue out so he could not talk back. All the cowardly lion says now is, I'm sorry, and please forgive me. I watch him trade trauma for self-hatred. He comes with us too. We continue down this path, the scarecrow, Tin Man, Lion, and I, looking for faith with three people who believe and hope. I do not. I have seen them pulled apart by the patriarch of the papal court. The good witch told us the wizard could save us all. Maybe the witch is only wondrous because she believes in a false god. Maybe the wicked witch knows the truth and just wants the red shoes back to save me from my friends because I am trapped in this bubble with them and for some reason they seem to be happy here. The nurse stands over me as my eyes slowly slip open. I think for a moment it was just a dream, but I am not Dorothy. And they do not disappear. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, that was so beautiful. Wow, Hartley, wow. This is the first time, just so everybody knows, this is the first time I've heard you. And I didn't check out anything beforehand. And so this is my raw reaction. I really dig your work. I was really feeling it, like right off the bat. I love that, you know, we have like this alliteration, explosion of musicality, which I love. The Wizard of Oz is like, that's my happy place from way back in the day. And using your art for explorations of faith and identity. So well done, so well crafted. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's probably one of my favorite pieces that I've ever written. I wrote it like right at the height of like right at the beginning of when everyone kind of shut down and the pandemic really like kicked off.
Yeah.
And I was just sitting there and I was like, I need to put this on a page of like all these things that feel like they've been overlapping and now they're like coming to a head.
Yeah.
And it's probably one of my favorite pieces that I've written, just with how it feels so intrinsically interconnected, the imagery of the Wizard of Oz, but also how like my mental health has been like politicized, and like the trigger words, or not trigger words, but like the buzzwords around certain mental illnesses.
Yeah.
And it just like seemed to like fit so perfectly. And I just sat there, I like think I wrote it in like 30 minutes.
Wow, it was ready to go. It was just like, it
Like
feels
sitting
like,
in my brain.
yeah, something that was brewing, and then it was just
Mhm.
like, you know, like the kettle starts whistling. Okay, it's
Exactly.
time.
Yeah.
And this is something else too that I'm very passionate about. I'm a mental health advocate as well, and it's something that's come up in these interviews over and over again. And we're going to be doing a showcase on mental health in the fall, so shortly after your this interview features, and we're going to be we're in the process of building a playlist of video clips around mental health. We'll definitely include that in here or in there. Something that I'm wondering now is what brought you to what brought you to spoken word? What was the first kind of impetus that got you? Were you always writing, or was it like okay, now I'm ready to go? How did that journey evolve for you?
It was a bit of a mix of both. I've always kind of been that kid who is like, I'm a writer. Like when I was younger, I really wanted to be a performer. And my mom didn't have the heart to tell me that I couldn't sing when I was a kid until I was 12, and then kind of like figured it out. But I always, like, between the ages of, I want to say 10 and 12, I really got into literature and reading through like the Percy Jackson series, which is like a kids book series. But I was so interested in how storytelling could just become this medium of like conversation in those books in particular. And then I started writing on my own. I started like reading more poetry. When I was in 8th grade, I like got really like emotionally invested in This Is a Photograph of Me by Margaret Atwood, that poem. I believe it's Margaret Atwood. It's been a while, but like, and I couldn't figure out, like, my teacher was like, are you okay? And I was like, I don't actually know. And from there, I found the spoken word community online, because that was probably in about 2013, 2014, when like Latin poetry really took off. And it kind of just like aligned with me, like really trying to explore what was going on in my own brain, and kind of pulling apart like that. Yeah, and then I wrote my first spoken word poem and kind of like performed it in my grade 12 English creative writing course. And from there, I was just like, I want to do performance art. I want to engage in art in some way. And just from there, entered the community with Burlington Slam Project before they collapsed, sadly. But there, I started there, and then kind of moved into a couple different areas, and I've just kind of been floating, saying my words with Queer Slam and other spaces since.
That's so cool. You know, it's really interesting for me. I started in spoken word in the 90s, and I just see such a difference now with the internet, you know, to think I started before the internet was really a thing. And so you had to go to events to see people, and you had to have somebody come from out of town to bring in a new aesthetic. And so I love how that availability really, you know, really kind of opened things up for you in a beautiful way. And I love that that's a possibility for artists now. So switching gears a little bit, something that I was really struck in your bio, and that we were talking about just a little bit before we started this interview, was you were talking about like these unspoken expectations in intersectional storytelling, which is really, intersectionality is something I'm very passionate and interested about. But I loved the phrasing of unspoken expectations. So I was wondering if you could unpack for us a little bit what you mean by that, what you find that these expectations are, especially as an artist, and what how you counter that, and what would be your message if you could, in a soundbite, I guess, you know, give you the platform to put that forth. Like, what are you trying to educate people? What's the message you're giving?
Yeah. So basically, in terms of like creating a space for like dismantling that idea of like, you know, the like good oppressed person on stage, I feel like a lot of media, especially like media that we consume in a more mass media sense, especially in terms of like if we're dealing with any sort of like intersectional or different oppressive systems, is that we have begun to use media in order to propel the narrative that like we are not the bad guys, which is like super important, don't get me wrong, but in the process of doing that, a lot of the media that has been created for our oppressors, as opposed to for ourselves. So it's a lot of like being like the good queer in my case, or like the transmasculine person who like looks transmasculine, whatever that means, you know what I mean? And like, how am I like sitting here in like makeup and my earrings and like my kind of short, like messy, like fun, like pixie long hair, like not what people expect to see when they hear transmasculine person, and like how that like we cater our work and our media and art to educating people, which is is important, don't get me wrong, but in the process of educating, we become these like perfect versions. And then people are like, oh, well, that's a bad representation because that person is flawed. And I'm like, no, like people who are oppressed also have flaws. Like we're human, you know what I mean? Like we don't always, we aren't like the perfect person all the time. Like in terms of like disability, like yeah, my disability, like personally, like there are times when my disability turns me into like a person who like I don't love, you know what I mean? And like that's okay. And like we, there are other facets to our experiences that aren't just like, here's like this disabled person doing something super amazing, you know what I mean? And like no, like there are times when I'm like in bed crying because I'm in so much pain, like, and no one wants to see that on TV, you know what I mean? But because we don't show that in media, in poetry, in art, on theater, people don't understand that those are also part of our experiences either. And so I think that like it's really important as artists that like we take ourselves as we are, and yes, we grow and learn and we become these amazing people that we always have been, don't get me wrong, but like we don't stifle our artwork to make it palatable, you know what I mean? And we make the art that we want to make, and there are times when we have to settle, don't get me wrong, but there are times where like we should truly be making unabashed art for ourselves. And I think that that's really important, and I think that's something that I really want to and try to empower especially young artists to do, is that like do not put yourself, and especially within the spoken word community, I found that this was something that I kind of experienced, like do not like bottle yourself into one thing, you know what I mean? And let yourself experience the full breadth of your life on stage if you feel whatever that means to you, however much you want to put on that stage. It is yours, and like you are allowed to, and you should.
Yeah, I love that. And it's funny, these things that happen, like interview magic, there's this magic of things coming together with that moment where you were restarting the poem and I'm yelling, humanity, and that word messy that really stuck out to me in your bio, to me, and how you just unpacked that for us so well. To me, that really creates space for authenticity. I've been doing a lot of teaching for a long time too, working with young people, and something that breaks my heart is when I see somebody and I'm like, yeah, you've been watching that person, you've been watching. It's like, no, what's you? Like, how do you roll? And I always see when artists do them in their messy way, that's how an authentic voice evolves rather than emulating. Because the thing is too, as you put so well, like, when you're emulating somebody else, there's this, it's almost like underneath is this unexpressed shame that's just, being held down. Whereas if we're given space, and I love what you're talking about, is it, to me, I would translate that as giving space to the people that are in the audience and that you work with, the youth, to be authentic, to be who you are. So that's beautiful.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, no, it's something I'm really passionate about, as someone who like very much did that, was like, I'm gonna like write poems for tens, and then I like realized very quickly, I was like, these are not my poems, you know what I mean? Totally. These are stage poems. And that's when I started writing for myself, and I'm really happy that I found that, because it's something that like as someone who grew up like competition dance, and then also like went right into the spoken word like competitive scene, like I jumped very quickly like onto a CFSW Last Chance stage, and I just like didn't understand my own voice at the time, and I understood what got me scores, and that's something that I really want to like, and like as we kind of dismantle what competition means in an unhealthy way and turn it into a healthy competition, I think that's really important. But yeah, just really taking in what you are and who you are, and not like creating something for a stage, for a 10, for the TV show that's going to make you hundreds of millions of dollars. And yeah, sure, like we live in a capitalistic society and we need to survive somehow, so sometimes we have to settle, but make what's authentic to you regardless of of how you might need to settle.
Yeah, that's so important, and it's something that I find is for people who like me who've been writing and performing for decades, as much as it is for the emerging artists. It's always this push pull between give the people what they want and say what my soul needs me
Yeah,
to say,
exactly.
and when this it gets too much power, it becomes stifling, and
Exactly.
self-betrayal is like a form of self-betrayal.
Yeah. No, I totally hear you.
I would love to. I know you're passionate about talking about
I know,
process, so
sorry.
I would love to hear a little bit about what's your process look like? How do you create a poem?
Yeah, so in terms of poetry, as I mentioned, I have a pretty hefty dance background, which is where a lot of my art started. And then I had a really lovely teacher who like empowered me to like create art in a way that was like storytelling mixed with dance, mixed with performance, and just absolutely like light bulb moment. And so when I write poems, I always write them in this concept of like a moment. I'll like take a moment of feeling, a moment of emotion, like something that happened.
Mm.
And I never start with a big idea. Start with the little one. And from the little one, I kind of let it grow and meld and mold it. But I find that usually I can't force poems. I know some people can be like, I'm going to sit down and write today. And I'm like, no, if I don't have that little moment already in my brain, nothing is coming out onto the page for at least 3 hours.
Mm.
But the second I have that, I write poems fast. I cannot let it sit, let it simmer. I'll like sit there and like slap it onto the page and then I'll come back to it later. But I often find that a lot of my work revolves around how I'm going to move when I say a poem.
Interesting.
So I like will be writing the poem and I'll be like, oh, this is where I can do this. And I'll like choreograph it as I'm writing it a little bit. And like every time it's a little different. I never like set choreography really. Like sometimes I do. Sometimes if I'm trying to memorize something, I'll set choreography because I'm not thinking about both at the same time.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm a really big in terms of like adding my movement into my choreography,
Mm.
into my poetry. Um, and so when I write poems, I write with the sense of like, I always write with musicality in mind. And I always write with like, how am I going to be able to pull the movement into the poem? Versus just like, here's the poem and now I will add movement. And for some people that totally works, but my brain does not comprehend one or the other. They are always best friends.
That's so amazing. It's like it's like you're demonstrating. I'm really, as you're talking, I was really aware of watching your hands, and I'm like, and this is exactly how it's like a demonstration of what you were saying. It was is yeah, that was awesome. And I was thinking too about the word intersectional. That you have a focus in your work and a passion in your advocacy about intersectionality in terms of identity, but I'm also seeing like a creative
Yeah,
intersectionality of how does movement then inform the writing as well.
absolutely. I would like in a heartbeat call myself an intersect or inter uh, either like a trans intersectional or oh my god, there's an actual word for it.
Transdiscipline.
Interdisciplinary
Yay,
word. As a
interdiscipline.
poet,
Cool,
words
cool.
all over the
Yeah.
all the time.
We can invent words
Interdisciplinary,
too.
absolutely. Multidisciplinary, transdisciplinary, interdisciplinary, any of those words, like I definitely like. I don't see my practices as separate. I see them as like wholeheartedly and like always interconnected. Like even when I'm doing drag, like it's like still theater arts, it's still performance, and then it turns into like character, which is like I try not to do as much in my spoken word, but I also like recognize that like there's still this idea of like putting on a performance in
Yeah,
some way. And so
yeah,
like in order to like not re-traumatize myself every time I read a poem, I
yeah,
like put myself into a place where I like it's not a character, but it's like a me that can say this right now.
yeah, for
And
sure.
so I think that that's always something that I kind of take with me is that like how all of my art forms blend and bleed into one another, even like with the tech, with the lighting. The lighting is movement, the lighting is dance, the lighting is, you know, and theater tech versus visual arts, where I'm like flowing on a page and finding words, and you know what I mean. They're all, they don't separate.
Is this something that you're going to be talking about in your workshop? I'm curious about what you're going to be taking on in your workshop now.
Yeah, so my workshop will be in terms of like movement, and it's going to work on like how can you engage an audience with more than just your words. So I'm going to kind of be talking about like my process a little bit, and then empowering other people to like try process of like, and like sometimes it's easier when your camera's off at home and like you don't have to worry about like other people in the room, and you're not like as scared to be like, how am I moving right now? But like really taking your work and words and finding out how you can exist within them in a fully embodied sense, whatever that means to you. You don't have to be like dancing and moving and standing up. It can be like the tonal quality of your voice, and like how that like a poem on a page can be fully embodied in yourself, regardless of like how much you can physically move around a space.
I love that phrasing, how you can exist within the poem.
Yeah,
that's a great way of putting it. I would love to hear another piece from you. Could you share something else with us?
Yes, for sure. Trying to always the last minute decisions of like, which one am I doing now? This one I also wrote at the beginning of the pandemic.
Okay.
So pandemic stuff.
Nice.
Wash once, twice, still dirty. 3, 4, not clean yet. 5, 6, I haven't left my room in 3 hours and I've washed my hands 6 times. Every social media page is plastered with the same instructions, telling you to drench your fear in cleaning supplies. Wash your hands and use hand sanitizer liberally when you can't. We will make this work. I think about the last time this script ran through my head unprompted by social media, because I spent the last 5 years breaking bad habits. When I was 13, I sanitized my hands before touching anything, carried a bottle in my back pocket like it was holy water. To me, it was. I didn't want to hurt anybody. You see, when mental illness is thrown around like last season's fashion accessory about color coordination and keeping spaces clean, of Bath and Body Works hand sanitizers and puzzle piece desk decor, I can hear them through the walls of my own home. Oh my God, I'm so OCD about this. I have 3 pockets of hand sanitizer in my bag. I say, are you really? Because I am scared of becoming a hollow shell of hand washing again. My childhood comes rushing back. River water I was too scared to touch. I am 15, so scared of death that I refuse to watch anything I didn't watch be cooked, refuse to eat anything I didn't watch be cooked. I wash my hands 10 times before they feel clean, they break out blood. I am scared to hold my partner's hands in case I crack like crevices on my palms, and my breathing becomes a cavern of half-finished echoes. I say prayers like they are the only sounds that I am tuned to make, and then pretend I didn't say them. Trail machines are perched on every corner of my university campus. My phone screen becomes a trigger warning. I have to tell myself that you do not need to take communion every 30 seconds to be closer to God, but my closet becomes my confessional again, and I am the sinner who cannot leave. And I pray to a God I haven't spoken to in years. And all of a sudden, I am more worried about my queerness. I start thinking about soul finding its way onto death's doorstep. I see inferno waiting for me behind heaven's gate. I take communion to con me into being straight again and again and again. Wash my hands as if I could sanitize my gender enough for God to love me again and again. Communion again and again. If I replace holy water with rubbing alcohol, bless myself in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, will I finally be clean? She says she's so OCD, and I know she doesn't really know what she means. But for me, it is an illusion of a recurring baptismal service, as if cleaning my hands will make me the pristine princess my pastor prayed I was to become. When the water washed over me the first time, when the water washes over me again and again and again, she says she's so OCD about it all. And I ask her if she carries holy water in her back pocket. She does not understand.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Wow, I feel so inspired listening to you, you know. I encourage everybody to go and check out your workshop on July 9th. Just talking to you today, I'm sure, for me, as I said, I feel inspired. I'm sure people are going to be like, okay, sit down and start cathartic, expressing what's in them. Thank you for sharing your work.
Thank you so much for having me. It's truly a pleasure. And I so enjoyed talking to you and chatting and sharing, and just lovely.
Yeah, I think what I appreciate really from this time is the invitation to authenticity, like sharing really well-crafted, beautiful poems, but also with everything that you've said is this invitation to create space for our own messiness. So personally, thank you for that.
Yes.
I want to, let people know where they can find you. If you want to, you can follow Hartley at by Hartley Reed Schuyler, which is SCHUYLER. We'll put it below because I don't know if I just messed that up.
No, you're good.
And the website will be below as well. If you want to find more about Hot Damn, It's a Queer Slam, and Hartley's workshop in specific, you can check them out at queerslam.com. I want to thank everybody for coming to check out this Brickyard interview. We're going to have one more interview with the Hot Damn Queer Slam moment artist. I mean, this is for the moment, so hopefully more in the future, but for this series, we're coming towards the end. I've really enjoyed it. If you want to see more series like this, we need your support. So please like, subscribe, share, send to your friends. If you know a spoken word artist who hasn't quite, gotten on stage or expressed their stuff, they're still kind of behind the scenes. These interviews, I think, can really help inspire people. So thank you for joining us, and thank you so much, Hartley, for sharing your work.
Thank you so much, Andrea. It was a pleasure. Have a lovely day.
Thank you. You too. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.